Hello and welcome to another edition of the Paranormal Concept Show, exclusive to the Paranormal UK radio network. I'm your host, Paul Rook, and as always, I am joined up in the studio by Kerry Greenaway and Richard Clements. Hello, guys.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, how are you?
Good.
Yeah, we're
Good.
not too bad here.
Now, I know Kerry's been going back to work.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, I'm back at the forefront of
How
working.
has that been going? I bet it's been really mega change to your life, really, isn't it?
It was the strangest thing in the world. Going
Yeah.
into a job I've done for 15 years and not remembering how to do a thing. it was like
Oh,
it was
dear.
like your first day of a job, although
Yeah.
you knew your job. And once you got into it, it was fine. But like, when I looked at the till, like the first time I looked at the till, I was thinking, "Oh God, how do I do this?" And it's amazing actually how right you do it by rote. The more I didn't think about what I was doing, it come.
Yeah.
But the minute I tried to think about it, I was like, oh my God. And then when I got the marketing brief through, that was like, what am I looking at? But then when I got in the department and I just started doing it, again, I wasn't overthinking it. I just did it. And then by the end of the shift, it was fine. And so, yeah, it was very busy. I will say that. People were still a bit confused as to why, if they'd had the vaccine, we still had to have a certain amount of people in store. But I've had the vaccine. Yeah, I know, but it doesn't matter.
Oh, I can
So we've had
imagine
a few of
because
those. Um, and then, yeah, the normal issues of people not wanting to wear masks when they should wear masks and stuff like that. But other than that, everybody's been so appreciative and happy that we are now back at work and working. I'll
Mm.
turn my phone off.
Yeah.
So bear with me, callers. Your call is important to me. There we go.
there you go.
Yeah, no, so it's good. And it's really good for me. It's good to feel that level of normal,
Yeah.
that purpose of getting up, going and doing my day job, and then having the routine of what I would do when I get home normally. Do you know what I mean? That has been, well, I feel so much better in myself.
Good.
Oh, that's good. It's good to have you sort of back out and about and sort of getting back to normal, I think.
Just feel more
And,
motivated. Yeah, it just
well,
feels,
yeah.
it's a really strange, it's just, I can't express enough how, if, although it hasn't been traumatic in what we would normally class as trauma,
Mm.
Hmm.
this whole pandemic has had traumatic effects on a lot of people, whether or not you've worked through it or not. The fact that you would normally work, even though you've been paid, it's like, if somebody had said to me, you get pretty much a year where someone pays 80% of your wages and you can sit at home and do what you want.
Yeah.
I would have gone, God, yeah, that sounds amazing. Yes, bring it on. But when it's under the circumstances of how it's happened, it's actually been quite traumatic for the people that have had to work through it. That has been very traumatic for them. The worry and the stress of this virus, and I tell you, this is going to have long term psychological implications on people,
Of
and
Oh,
course
I
it
would
is.
totally agree with you there, Kerry.
yeah,
It's sort of, it's, it's sort of like just trying to get yourself out of the rut we've sort of like got ourselves in because a year is a long time
mm.
for uncertainty
It's still
and
ongoing though. If you think about
well,
it these
yeah,
days,
that's right. And we've even got more uncertainty in the future.
mm.
Sort of like I know we're all glad to be out and about now, but we've got next winter to come, and if this sort of goes anything, and if this follows the path anything like the flu does, well, hmm,
Yeah.
We shall
yeah,
see.
That's
We shall
it.
see. And we're not out the woods yet. I mean, we're talking pretty UK perspective here. But
hmm,
worldwide, when you look at other countries and what's happening in other countries, this is a global trauma that's
yeah,
going on, and
Mm.
psychological trauma that's going on. And I can understand to a degree why people are fighting for an explanation for it, and jump into conspiracy theory kind of viewpoints and stuff like that. Certain things don't seem to add up when you look at them. It's a very strange time that we've lived through.
Hmm.
And we're not out of the woods yet, and that uncertainty in there.
no,
So just be aware of your mental health. for anybody out there listening, and talk. If nothing else, talk to
Yeah.
people. You know what I mean? And seek the help if you need it. The isolation side of it shouldn't be underestimated for people.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden you've gone from being isolated to being thrust out into the public again. I mean, we've all had a mental well-being check at work before we started work, basically to sort of gauge our anxieties and our worries and stuff like that. Mine was mainly I can't remember how to do my job. That's my main worry. But then, like I said, once I got into it, it come naturally again and it was fine. But like when the girls come back, because obviously they're all on different shifts, we're having to give them a mental health mental health well-being check, just to try and allay any fears that they might have coming back after being isolated for extended periods of time. So it is something you need to be aware of, folks, is all I'm going to say. It might
Well,
be
yeah.
opening
Absolutely.
up, but it's had an impact.
Yeah.
The world needs healing.
It does. I want to break into a Michael Jackson song, but I think that might be
Yeah, no, don't.
inappropriate.
Absolutely. But yeah, so jumping straight to the topic of tonight's show, we are talking about faith healing
Yeah.
and psychic surgeries and stuff like that.
Yeah, again, we're delving into a world of belief and faith, aren't we?
Yeah,
Yeah,
which has sort of
definitely.
always been a sort of an undercurrent of our shows, isn't it? Sort of, well, being a paranormal radio show. I mean, to a certain extent, that takes belief and faith, doesn't it?
Of course.
Yeah, I think the whole faith healing thing takes faith to a new level, though.
Yeah, that's certainly to me, I've sort of come across sort of, well, only what everyone else has probably seen on the TV. Occasionally, you'll see these sort of faith healers and stuff like that. And to be quite honest, I don't know quite what to make of it all.
There are some
Well,
there are
I think,
some you have to look at, and I think that's hysteria at play.
Yeah. Oh, you can certainly see that. I mean, and again, the s- the sort of people that go and see a faith healer sort of believe anyway, don't they? And you've got the, it sort of seems to me set up as by believers for believers, and I
I,
don't know so
but
much.
there are different segments of this. When I was looking at this subject, there was more the religious perspective
Yes.
healers, where we see the Orthodox and the evangelicals and all that giving
Hmm.
it, and they get themselves into like a frenzy,
hmm
Hmm.
and that frenzy is what I believe drives it. But you have faith because that's why you're going to that, because that's your religious basis, and they're doing that through the power of God, through the power of the divine, and they build themselves up into like it's whipped up into a frenzy with lots of generally lots of music going on and shouting sermons and high energy emotions out being played out in front of you and whipping the crowd up into that emotional thing. It's almost like a football
Yeah.
football match, isn't
Match.
it, where you get the crowd's all buzzed up and all that, and then you get picked on, and then all of a sudden the focus of attention is on you, and it's all of that sort of thing. But then there's another side. There's lots of different sides to this. The other side is the spiritual side, which is generally done very calm, very zen music, ting ting bells, incense, very sometimes shamanic, might use drums and rattles and things like that, but it's very one on one. It's not a
Yeah.
frenzied hysterical situation at all. That's a completely different level. Then you've got like the general ones like that spiritual side would also include things like Reiki and just hand healing and stuff like that, those kind of treatments. Then you've got the other side, which is actual psychic surgery, which is
Hmm.
where they physically, allegedly, perform a surgery to remove something from the body without being invasive,
hmm
right?
Hmm.
So let's first of all let's break this down. So let's look at the religious perspective at all in the first place, the frenzied one.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Now, I have to say, I've not witnessed this in the flesh, as it were, not actually been to one, but I've seen a lot of it on TV.
Yeah.
It seems to me, and this is just my personal opinion, that it is a business. And when you're selling and marketing a business, you're getting people to buy into the product you're selling.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
To do that, you have to be highly manipulative. If you're selling an idea.
Yeah.
And that is where I feel that particular healing scenario hits. It hits high emotion, hysteria. It ties into a belief system that you've got, but in a very business-minded way.
Yes, I must admit, some of the more sort of dramatic ones I have viewed on TV, it has been some of the bigger sort of names in this sort of field of faith healing. And they certainly do seem to have a big support network behind them. And certainly, yeah, it seems to be more financially driven than anything else.
I don't want to undermine the faith of the religion or the faith within the religion itself. I think this is a very specific sect of that. So I don't want to undermine people's belief system in what they believe in that way. But when you take it to that level of what I've seen on, YouTube videos and God knows what else, and I would even say I've seen some exorcism videos the same.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When they've exorcised the demon, and it's very highly emotive, it's very dramatic, it's very psychologically telling, overpowering somebody. That's how it seems to me when I watch those kind of videos. Paul, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that particular one that you're talking about, or that experience that you're mentioning, yeah, I can see where you're coming from. But I think a lot of people would believe because they've got that belief system already, and they want to help and support their whatever they call it, a pastor or a vicar or father or whatever they want to call them. They obviously want to support them, and by giving them money contributions, they are allowing them to continue their work through like that being their full-time job. So they're basically paying their bills, basically, aren't they? But I think some of those people do get a bit greedy and just rake it in left, right, and centre, and they are almost taking advantage of the people that are believing. That's sort of where I stand on that.
That's how it seems to me as well.
Yeah.
That's how it seems to me. Now, a lot of these big conventions, and they're massive. I mean, God, there's thousands of people there, all with the hope that they're going to be the ones that are picked for this healing. And it never seems to be the ones that really need it.
Yeah.
I mean, if someone was genuine and could actually heal people, why have scientists not investigated these claims and taken advantage of their skills and actually have them in the hospitals to cure people?
Yeah,
it's not as straightforward as they think it is, just by being able to lay hands on someone and go, "Oh, you're healed."
When we get into
work
the
like that.
spiritual kind of healing, the quieter one, we'll come back to that point. But this particular kind of healing that we see out there, the miracle healing, I think they call it, no, far too noisy for a hospital. Come on now.
Yeah, but no, my point is though, if it works and it is a genuine gift that they have, I say gift, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Or a skill that they have to cure anybody of whatever they come against, Why has science not been able to explain why they've got that? But then if it works, then why do they not have them in hospitals and places that they can actually be cured? Even if they set up like their own hospital, spiritual healing hospital, where people with disabilities can be referred to and cured.
I do think there is a level of see, it's theologically it's very dodgy ground with the religion, when you tie religion into it, isn't it? Because
Yeah.
the Bible itself sets a precedence on this. Jesus healed. He performed miracle healings. People who do this work, declare that God is working through them. They're not calling themselves Jesus per se, but they're saying that they're channeling God's energy and the divine energy through to heal the person in front of them on a religious perspective. This is the religion side, everybody.
From my point of view as well, right? If that's the case and God could have done that, then it was a waste of time sending Jesus, then, wasn't it?
Well,
he
no,
could have
because we wouldn't
have
have
just
this.
said, "Oh yeah, look, we'll give the power to John, Paul, Luke, and Matthew. You ain't got to bother going down there now. You can stay up here, watch them from here." The power of God. He could have given them the power, and they could have done God's work. He didn't have to send Jesus, then, did he?
I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know about that. But as Kerry was saying, I mean, the Bible does actually specifically state, Jesus stating that if you believe in me, you will be able to perform everything I do. Which is, and healing is in that remit.
And there are many. They're classed as the miracles, aren't they? Of Jesus' healings. When you look at some of the things that he did, they're actually impossible, statistically impossible, that he allegedly did, if we believe the Bible.
Well, yeah, sort of bringing the dead back to life is a bit, but again, there are cultures, specifically in Africa, that still believe that, even that extreme.
So, okay, using that logic, then they should be able to not just heal people, but feed 5,000 people with a loaf of bread and a fish.
Well, I think that everyone had food. They just didn't want to get it out because they didn't want to share. And then when Jesus showed the example of sharing, that then everybody started getting their food and their drink out and shared amongst all the other followers as well. So it ended up being plentiful. I think that's actually what happened there. And it was a lead by example kind of scenario.
But this is the thing. This is people, sort of Christians, and especially the evangelicals. They do tend to cherry pick what they like from the Bible, and then if you come to them and say, "Yeah, can you feed?" they say, "Oh no, that actually means this." And it's like Jesus brings, healing. But you believe in that, but you don't believe in this miracle. They do cherry pick.
Yeah.
But Jesus allegedly told his followers to heal the sick and stated that signs such as healing are evidence of faith. Jesus all told his followers to cure sick people, raise up dead persons, make lepers clean, expel demons, and you received free, give free. That's in Matthew and Mark, the Gospels of Matthew and Mark. So when you start looking at the Bible and you start seeing examples like this, you start thinking, well, he said that. Well, according to the Gospels, he said that. Again, we've looked at that when we talked to Matt Arnold about where the Bible actually came from. So he allegedly said this. You know what I mean? And there are things like apparently people who had received healing from him, he told them not to tell anybody.
Right.
Yeah.
Do not tell anyone. Because he didn't want it to be the spectacle.
He didn't want to be known for it or something,
It wasn't about the spectacle.
Or be inundated with people, yeah.
So, so are they then going, you look at that little argument then, well, Jesus was doing it. He was doing it very quietly. I mean, all right, word got out because that's people, that's the nature of people, isn't it? But, you know, when he was doing it, he was saying, don't tell anybody. This is just for you.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? He was saying, don't tell anybody. I will do it when I want to do it, not on command of you.
Yeah.
You don't command me. I'm in command of myself. I will do what I want when I want. That was the power of him, you know. His psychological strength. I mean, every time I look at Jesus, I think the psychological strength of the man was absolutely phenomenal, quite frankly. But I just find that whole topic of, okay, there's a book written. As I say, when we spoke to Matt Arnold, we found the origins of the Bible are a little bit murky, and various people have written, some by, you know, years and years after the event of this. And of these occurrences, and it's one of those, isn't it, where you look at it and you go, okay, so this is a hearsay story, but a lot, the majority of the Western world has some level of belief in it. It's a good moralistic story.
Yep.
So it shouldn't be dismissed. It's not a bad thing to have a belief and have faith in a higher power. And like Paul has said on many occasions, it's like, if you're in real trouble, who's the one person you call?
Ghostbusters.
No.
He-Man.
No. He-Man. Where did you get that from?
I was watching Ghostbusters 2 the other
Oh,
night.
okay.
Oh,
I was going to say, the last person
That's
I
a
think
bit
I've
unlike
called
you,
for
Paul.
is He-Man.
Yeah.
You call, you know, you say, oh, God, help me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You ask for that help, don't you? You know, from whoever that you perceive God to be, whatever religion you're in, you pray to your God, no matter what that's called, for help. So there is a faith, there is a belief in this higher power. And if there is this higher power, and you have that much belief in that higher power, then maybe that's enough. Maybe that's enough. Now,
No, I'm still not buying it.
when we go into what we're seeing with these big conventions, these big healing conventions, I think they're set up. I think there's stooges in the audience. I think they get themselves all whipped up into a frenzy. I think that's part of it. I think that's why people go. They like that frenzy thing, the same as if you're going to a pop concert or you're going to a football match, or, you know, it's that adrenaline kick, isn't it? That adrenaline,
Yeah.
we call it adrenaline drunkies.
Yeah.
Not drunkies, junkies.
Drunk.
Junkies.
Put your
Close
teeth
enough.
in, woman.
Yeah, here we go again, folks. I need to get my teeth sorted. But when you look at that kind of thing, is it another level of that people are almost like addicted to that feeling?
Yeah, I consider that. I mean, that's how cults work, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
That's how cults work. So, yeah, I think you know people can get addicted to the adrenaline rush. They do. They have done for different things, you know. And it just so happens that these ones we're talking about are adrenaline junkies for religion. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and what you've got to remember is the people that attend these faith healing sort of services or conventions or whatever. I mean, they don't go every weekend. I mean, it's sort of like a community thing. You know, the faith healer is coming to town, so there'll be lots of different churches all getting together and going off and for a Saturday night out, I suppose, and just to and to be part of the spectacle.
But you're also generally in need of healing. How many people are going because they're desperate? They're on their knees. They need help. Their last call of resort, I suppose, would be, you know, God, you think this man that's up on the stage and doing all of his thing is miraculously healing people? That's selling a lie.
Well, yeah.
He's not going to pick the person who's most in need.
No. At the end of the day, we all have something wrong with us, don't we? I mean, you know, to a greater or lesser extent. So, yeah.
No, I'm
I can
perfect.
see that.
No, you're not.
I am. I don't have nothing wrong with me.
Oh, good. When you
Yes,
come
you
down
do.
next week, and when you come down next week, Paul, we'll go for a bike ride. Be fun.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
God, we nearly
Go for a
killed
walk
you in
along the
Rendle.
Thames.
We nearly killed you at Rendlesham Forest.
Oh, I'm still here.
It's a miracle.
Oh, that is a
Yeah.
miracle. How we got him out that forest is a miracle.
Yeah, that did need a bit of the divine to come in and help
Definitely
us get
divine
Paul round it.
intervention.
God, yeah.
Or sheer willpower.
Willpower, yeah.
It was willpower that did that.
So let's then look at that. If you get yourself into that strength of belief that God is going to heal you, can it? Can your mind heal you?
Yes.
This is where it does get interesting.
It's the power of positive thinking.
I think even normal physicians, doctors and scientists will say a state of mind, it's not a bad thing if you are ill. I mean, it does count for at least part of the process. If you are positive going into something, you do stand a better chance of sort of coming out the other side of it. I mean, yes, that I can see.
But people still die of illness.
Yes, I mean, but at the end of the day, it is part of the human journey, isn't it? I mean, you get well people, you get the sort of sick people. I mean, that is the way it is. It's the way it goes.
I think the power of the mind, let's look at power of mind. There are some people around the world that perform amazing feats physically with their bodies. We know that if we treat our body right and we're at a peak of our physical health and we are mentally strong, that we can run for 26 miles, that we can do triathlons, that we can climb Mount Everest, that we can get entombed in a pillar of ice for days on end, like that weird guy. What's his name?
David Blaine.
Thank you.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah. Regardless of what you think of the man, he did it. He trained his body to be able to withstand those temperatures for long periods of time. He's mentally strong enough to do that.
Yeah.
So,
I thought that was a trick.
No.
David Blaine is a magician, isn't he?
He's
Yes,
a mentalist, and that's where he started. But then he started to do these physical challenges.
Right, okay. I thought they were all... Isn't he the person that sat in a box?
That's right.
That's the one.
That's
Oh,
the one.
right.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah. And yes, you're right. He is a mentalist. He has done that sort of like level of things, but his physical challenges, should we say, I don't believe are tricks. I think he's actually trained himself to do that, like being entombed underground for so many weeks or however long it was, being in a box above the Thames. He did, didn't he? Being entombed in ice in that was in New York, Times Square. He did. But we've seen other people do things like this. Not just him.
Okay.
The point is, you see people perform outstanding feats with their body because they trained them to that level of peakness. Now, I mean, to be fair, I'm not fit. I don't have a particularly healthy lifestyle in general. I'm not that bad, but I'm not that great. I smoke. I eat crap food because I like it. I'm a bit of a chocoholic, as we all know. Do you know what I mean? So my body is not at its peak fitness.
No, but we've all got the body to be able to do all that stuff.
Yes.
We just need to train it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Correct.
It's like me sort of like going out of my fitness regime now. I bought myself a bike. I mean, I know where I want to get to, but there has to be a bit of work and putting and getting to that level. I mean, I'm not comfortable with the way I am at the moment, sort of fitness wise. And I've got a bit of the lockdown paunch, so that's got to go, unfortunately. And I knew this day would arrive. I've been putting it off long enough.
But in that battle, you've got, which it is a battle. Mm-hmm. Half of that battle is mental battle.
Oh yes,
we all start well. I bought a bike. Yoo-hoo!
Yeah.
I've got the desire. I know what my goal is, but getting to that goal. Bought a kayak, which failed miserably for all of us.
Yeah, it was a sad day that was, wasn't it?
I know.
That's another story.
It's very upset about
sank.
That, yeah. Before we even left shore.
Yeah.
Anyway, the mental battle of that. So we all start, it's like going to the gym. We get the gym membership, we get the outfit, we get the trainers. We go for the first 6 weeks or whatever it is, and we're plowing away at the gym. We're doing all right. Starting to get a level. We're starting to see an improvement. But then, I don't know, something will happen on the night you normally go to the gym. So you go, I'll go tomorrow.
Yep.
Same as a diet.
I know that's going to come.
But it's the same as going on a diet, isn't it? How often do you start something?
Yeah.
So mentally, you have to have that mental fortitude, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is difficult in a lot of us. And I can see why people sort of turn to religious belief, because perhaps it's safety in numbers as well. If you've got enough people around you, if you surround yourself with enough people, that can cheer you along as well.
Well, they say that accountability is part of it, don't they?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They say that if you put it out there, you see a lot of people at the beginning of the year put out like their New Year's resolutions. I'm going to lose 20 pounds.
Well, that's always part of the process of when you're gonna sort of like go to the gym and buy a bike and lose weight. Like I've just sort of stated there, you tell everyone you're going to do it as well, don't you?
Well, you do. I mean, you have.
Yeah, I know.
In 6 weeks' time, if you've not been on that bike, me and Paul will be going, why don't you be on your bike, Rich? Or what's the problem? And you'll come up with possibly, I'm not saying you will, but generally at that point, it'll be like, oh, it makes my back ache, or it's like, I don't know, the weather, I don't like going out in the bad weather. There's like a million reasons why you can't do it.
I'll blame it on you two, that's all.
If that makes you happy, we'll just sit there and smugly know that it's your own mental well-being that hasn't allowed you to do it.
Yeah, that's right.
Same as my diet. I fall off the wagon on a regular basis, everybody. But that's me. That's my willpower. That's down to me being able to say yes or no. Mm-hmm. Yes, I want the salad. No, I don't. I actually want the dirty cheeseburger. Do you know what I mean? Each moment is a choice, isn't it?
There was a spell for about 2 years when I was in my teens when I had a bike and I used to cycle everywhere. I was at the peak of my fitness, but there's also setting realistic goals. I know I will never get back to that, but I know back then I did have the willpower to actually do it. I was going out sort of like religiously, like for 2 years, cycling miles, doing exercise and everything. I know I won't be able to achieve that, and a lot of that's to do with age, actually. But I know I do have that in me somewhere. And it's just a case of trying to retrieve that and get the spark and just to get it simmering again.
Okay.
Yeah, see, I was at the peak of my fitness when I was about 10, and I ain't looked back since.
I've had varying times when I've been in peak of fitness and then not. I'm not at the moment, but I have had times in my life where I have been. But anyway, the point of that is the mental battle of sticking to a goal and maintaining that. Put then a serious illness on that. And you've got to remain positive and have faith the whole way through. Not easy to do. It's not easy to do.
It is difficult.
People do. But it's not easy to do. That's the point.
No.
Because once you have a serious illness on, something that does require, sort of expert attention, you do have to sort of like draw on more than sort of just your willpower and stuff like that. I mean, this is where support comes in, and support from others possibly will help along that way.
So then when we look at it in regards to the religious perspective, we then take that, you're on your knees, you're struggling, it's a battle within yourself, you rely on your faith and hope that you're going to get through that. You need some fortitude from an external source, whether that comes from an hysteria moment or the high adrenaline rush or a belief that somebody can do something for you. You know, there's no surprising this is like a gap in the market that's been filled, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean, and it's quite a large gap, and this sort of vacuum, it's created a vacuum, and there are sort of, and as you say, and the religious movement and the spiritualist sort of New Age movement have sort of filled that vacuum quite well. I mean, it was made for them.
Yeah.
I wouldn't link the spiritual into this at this perspective, at this point.
Well,
I see that as something completely different.
But but in the New Age movement, there is a lot of sort of healing aspects there, isn't there?
There is, but we're focusing on the religious side of it at this moment.
Okay.
We'll talk about the spiritual in a moment. Although I understand why you're linking that together, it's a completely different way of looking at it. Because religious belief is very different from spiritual belief.
Yes, I would agree with you.
In regards to like what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Personally.
Okay.
That's all. Because it's difficult because it is all like tied under the same banner, isn't it?
Mm.
But I don't know any spiritual healer that would say they could perform miracles.
No, I say it's an area I don't know a lot about. Again, I've sort of not actually sort of been a part of any sort of spiritual sort of healing per se. I mean, I've done meditation sessions, which those were actually done as part of. I mean, it's no secret I did have a sort of like addiction issue when I was a bit younger, and yes, and there was meditation involved as part of the process. So I suppose I can actually say I've been through some form of spiritual healing process, and I believe it did actually help.
But I don't think you'd ever gone to a
no
God-based religion, a big convention, and gone, I'm an addict. God, heal me. And someone laid their hands on you and went, you are healed, my son. From the power of God, from the power of the Lord above, kind of thing.
Yeah,
you see them. I mean, there's one guy, he had his jacket off and he's whipping people with his jacket and they're all passing out.
Yeah.
They're all passing out with it. And I'm thinking, what?
See, now, I've obviously started out arranging medium nights, and I worked with quite a few that claim to be healers.
Yeah.
And at one particular time, I had a really bad back. So I said, well, let's see how good you are. Heal my back. All right. And they did what they did, and it didn't do nothing. I've seen a few of them, and again, nothing ever changed. And it wasn't until I started going to a Church of England church for the my godsons to become a godfather. Mm. And I attended a healing service with the Church of England. And I went up and I thought, you know what, let's give that a go. I've tried all the other healers. This is a healing service, so let's give this one a go. And it worked for about 3 weeks. No pain whatsoever.
So why didn't you go back?
Well, I didn't need to because my back was all right after that for a little while.
Only for 3 weeks.
Only for 3 weeks.
Yeah, but I'm not one of these people that are really religious. So
yeah,
I'm not,
You're like most people like us. Yeah, you like to be a martyr to it, don't you?
Yeah,
a martyr to the pain.
No,
I'm a martyr to the pain.
If I'd found something that had worked, I would have gone back.
But I don't know if it was that or whether it could have just been the painkillers I was on.
It's always, and You always have that doubt. Well, I mean, again, this is why it's always good to be an outright believer and to go to these, because you have no doubt. But people like us three, and if we went along, our doubt would probably override any potential benefits.
I'm
Right.
probably the most believing out of the three of us,
Yes, definitely.
in all honesty,
Yeah.
because I believe in the power of rocks at the end of the day,
Yeah, you've got all those rocks in your conservatory. haven't you?
and trust me,
Yeah.
they have helped.
Yeah, well, yeah.
But anyway, so going on to the religious thing, I see, personally, Paul, I would have gone at 3 weeks out of pain, I would have gone back.
Maybe I will. I don't know. We'll see.
Because it's an interesting experiment, if nothing else, isn't it? And if you've
Yeah.
got 3 weeks out of pain,
Yeah.
so you can see how addictive that could be for somebody who's in a lot of pain.
Yeah.
And that's
A
another
normal
show out
person.
of that.
Yeah, a
Yeah,
normal
definitely.
person.
And we can get another show out of that.
Yeah, well, maybe we could. Yeah. So I can understand why some people would fall into it, believe it. But then it makes me wonder, is that when that doesn't work, does that shake their belief? I wasn't chosen to be healed by the powers that be. You know what I mean?
They always have a get out clause, don't they? They say, well, if it doesn't work, sort of just pray that little bit harder. I think a lot of problems with these faith healers is they can sort of, if they perform something on an individual and it doesn't work, the faith healer can say, oh, you just need to have more faith. There's a bit of a get out clause, and I think a lot of them use that.
I mean, I definitely think you need to have a positive attitude with what you're going through. I think I acknowledge that's incredibly difficult with some, when you're going through pain day after day or extensive treatments, particularly in the Western way of treating people. It's very sterile. I know nurses and doctors are doing their best, but they're performing some very invasive treatments on people for varying illnesses. I'm talking about varying illnesses for this, and it's very difficult, isn't it? It's very hard to it's a very difficult one to call. From what I've seen, as I say, on these varying, the big religious conventions where they're doing the mass healings and stuff like that, to me, I don't get it at all. I don't understand why you would pay your money to go to something like that. If I was going to be healed, it's very personal. An illness, it's very personal. It's very private. You want something that's going to sustain you and boost you. And I think you could come away from one of those conventions, although your immediate high, whilst you're there in the midst of it, just through the energy that's being created in a room, to then come away from that, the fall could be harder.
I must admit, I mean, I'm on the side of these Western medical personnel, and I've had an experience with it was like an evangelist healer who actually allowed someone to die on stage because he could cure someone. Personally, because of that experience, I do believe that they should all be banned. Shouldn't be allowed to practice at all. If you're putting people's lives at risk, don't do it. That's my personal opinion.
Well, yeah, if there's something that extreme that's happened, well, yeah.
But they'll say it's a complementary medicine and you shouldn't give up Western medicine.
No.
You should do both.
Yeah.
Any healer of their worth would say it's complementary to doctors and nurses medicine, not give all that up and then I'm going to heal you. You know what I mean? That's a big red flag to me. But anybody that says this is complementary, we can do this alongside your treatment. It's not going to interfere with any treatment the doctor's going to give you. But we can work alongside that and work with you. And this is actually where spirituality comes into this. Let's go down the road of then spiritual the more spiritual healing, which is again is generally very calm. It's
So I can see the benefit of doing that because I mean let's face it. I mean even acupuncture
yeah,
is something that Western medicine have acknowledged that does help, but it also runs alongside medical treatment.
yes, I've had that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and I
same
and I
here.
do
I've
and
had
I
it.
do understand when it comes to healing about it healing mentally, getting your um, spiritualist body aligned with the chakras and all that sort of stuff that you know more about than I do. So I get it from that point of view, but as for physical healing, it can't be done. I don't believe it.
I think, right, from a spiritual perspective, we look at it in we look at the body in four parts. We look at it mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual, and it's about getting the balance between those four. So if you're mentally traumatized, it'll affect your other areas.
Yeah.
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 Same as if you're physically traumatized or ill, yeah, it's going to affect your other three areas as well. So it's about getting the balance, the energetic balance right between all four. So certain issues can have an impact on other areas, right? So, for example, I have psoriasis, well known. It's a skin disease, it's a skin problem that I've had. I've had it lifelong. It's part of my DNA structure, so I'm never going to get rid of it. But when I'm mentally traumatized or anxious, overly anxious, because we all suffer. I suffer from anxiety. My skin will flare up.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah. Hmm.
So I work really hard on trying to keep my energy centers balanced when I'm having a flare up to get my skin back under control, and it does have an impact. It's not immediate; it takes time because obviously trauma happens, and you have to work through that part of that healing process. Yeah, but it does work. It does calm it down again. And generally now I've dealt with this for a long time. So generally I can get it under control quite quickly before it becomes a major issue.
Mhm.
But that's something I've learned over 50 odd years of dealing with
Yeah.
that condition. I
Mm.
know what triggers it. I know how to deal with it when I'm having a flare up. I know what I need to do. I know generally what my triggers are now for my skin. So but this is a lifelong condition. You learn to manage a lifelong condition. And I've done that partly through spirituality.
Yeah.
I meditate more. I work through those issues. I find out my triggers are. I break it down. Do a lot of self-talking, a lot of self-examination of what's going on. That kind of thing. But that's one specific thing. When I had irritable bowel, really bad, I dropped to like 6 stone in weight, couldn't keep food down. It was horrendous. Had a lot of time off work with it. Had all that went down the medical route, the Western medicine.
Mhm.
Had every test under the sun, very invasive, not pleasant, and they couldn't come up with an answer for me. They said, well, we don't know what it is. We can't find anything wrong with you. So we're just saying it's irritable bowel. And well, that doesn't really help. You're not actually helping the problem. So I ended up going to a Chinese doctor. I went to a Chinese herbalist who gave me this lotion and this potion that I had to brew up in a saucepan. It smelt horrendous. And then trying to drink it was even worse. And I had acupuncture that complemented that. And that, within 3 weeks, my IBS was under control. And I started to learn how to manage that illness, because obviously
Yeah.
I now know I've got a tendency to IBS. I know what foods I can eat, what I can't eat that will trigger it
Mm.
now. But again, that's been going on for quite a long time. But when I first had IBS, it was really severe. And the doctors, the Western side doctors, bless them, they did the best they could for me. But they
Mm.
work by a process of elimination, don't they, generally?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, they sort of say, right, we'll start here. If we don't find it here, we move on to the next process and the next process. Yeah.
So going from a Western medicine, at that point in my life, I'd actually lost complete faith in Western medicine and gone more for the you know, the complementary medical route, as it were, like the herbal doctor and the acupuncture and things like that. So when I look at it, there are conditions I've had, like when I had pneumonia. No amount of praying was going to sort that one out. Not going to lie. No amount of meditation, mental well-being checks, no amount of potions, and like I needed antibiotics. Seriously, Western medicine all the way, folks. Do you know what I mean? So when you start looking at it, you've got to be very careful, haven't you?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I think, half the battle is they've got to include you in it as well. You can't sort of just sort of offer yourself up. I think, it seems to me with the spiritual sort of way, it's a two-way street as opposed to the more of the religious faith healing. It seems to all centre around the faith healer instead of the people trying to be healed.
Right. Run that by me again.
How do you mean? The spiritual sort of way to sort of like for healing, it seems to be a two-way street. You have the practitioner and you have the person that's going there to be healed, but you both need to be on the same wavelength. You've both. The person that's going to be healed sort of needs needs to work with their healer. As opposed to where sort of faith healers, the sort of like religious types, they tend to take all the glory for themselves, and it seems to be all centered around them. Whereas a good
I
healer,
see what you mean. Yeah.
It's get it right like that, But as I said, that certainly makes more sense to me, the spiritual path as opposed to the faith healing part.
But then that's part of what I was getting at with the healing mentally. It's almost like giving you a way of working out how to balance your body yourself and manage your body so you can get into that peak of physical fitness again.
And the thing with the sort of like the big faith healing rallies, there's a lot of pressure on people who actually go up, I should imagine. A lot of pressure.
So what do we think? Is it a placebo then? What we're seeing? Is it like all of a sudden that your belief in the person that's performing the healing and your faith in God, do we think it's almost like the self-responsibility is actually put onto something else, isn't it? A bit like what you said. You're almost placing all your faith and all your focus on the person that's going to give you the healing and believe that God is working through that person. And then do we think then that is enough to give you the belief that you are healed? I mean, when we talk...
I think that works for some.
They do say, if you've got a sort of like a problem, just give it away. You don't have to keep it. Just give it away. And perhaps the sort of... and this is what the faith healer is actually sort of willing to do. He stands up there and goes, come and give it to me, all to me.
It's fascinating because
there's a thought.
I think when you look at mental manipulation, now these people are mentally manipulating on a grand scale, but you go, oh, I'd never be fooled by that. But I have before. Didn't think I would. I thought I was strong enough, strong-minded enough not to fall for it. But I'll hold my hands up and say I've been mentally manipulated before. I didn't even realise it was happening at the time.
Well, yeah. I mean, it happens, yeah. But a faith healing sort of scenario that's usually centred around an evening, isn't it?
But you would have followed that person for a long time.
Yeah, you probably,
to pay the money to go to one of the rallies, you would have known who that person is and you would have followed them on their YouTube channels or whatever it is that you're following them on, and you would have that. It's a bit like we all looked at Charles Manson. How could that unassuming little man be that manipulative that, got people into the mindset they were okay to murder people for the good? Do you know what I mean? He did it. But, I mean, yes, okay, there's a lot of drugs involved in that. But he obviously had that power of character and that manipulation of character for people to accept that and allow themselves to be manipulated. And I bet if you'd sat down any one of those before that and said, would you be manipulated into killing somebody? Would you be manipulated into being raped? Would you be manipulated into this? They would have gone, no.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it does happen. It does happen.
You know, we've seen, what was it? Waco was a very famous one, wasn't it? Of a cult. They all committed suicide at a specific moment.
Yeah, towards the end, wasn't it? Yeah, David Koresh, wasn't it? The Waco incident. I think we all remember that and the outcome.
Yeah. Exactly, and that was manipulation.
Yeah.
So
and there's a lot of other.
That demonstrates one person can be that mentally manipulative on a group of people and affect a action. Is it enough for an individual to heal themselves through power in that way? That's the question on the table.
Well, yeah.
I don't know. I found it very difficult to find anybody who had had that kind of healing. Yeah, I heard loads of testimonies that I didn't believe from various people. I thought they were all stooges to say the word, to be fair.
Or people that are easily led, you know, because there's a lot of people willing, you know, to sort of like go up and, but I go back to my sort of like original sort of statement is there must be a lot of pressure on the individual that goes up, you know, that's to be sort of healed. Because if you're at one of these faith healing conventions and people are going up and getting healed and you're chosen, I mean, and you say you've got a malady and, you know, and you're not going to want to be the one at the end saying, well, I don't feel any different.
True.
And if you've got lots of other people around you saying, oh, I'm healed, and you're not going to want to be the fly in the ointment. And there's a lot of pressure there as well.
It's like peer pressure, isn't it, almost?
Yeah. There's a lot of pressure there as well.
But could that be enough to actually affect a change in your physical well-being? Could that actually be enough to heal you?
I could see how it would, because if you tell people that you was healed and that much, and then you started to believe it, the second you start to believe it, your mind is positive thinking. And positive thinking is something that can have a positive effect on how you feel. So in a roundabout way, yeah, it can.
Mm-hmm. It's a difficult one, isn't it? When you start looking at it, ethically, is it wrong that they're, you know, putting a positive? A lot of people say it's a very positive effect on people. This belief.
You have that. I mean, your traditional sort of medicine will say it is wrong, but nobody really does have the monopoly on who can cure who. No one has that monopoly. I know sort of modern science will say, well, it's us, and any serious, well-balanced person would know it's us. But no, I mean, especially in the West, we have freedom of choice, and we can all go where we like to get healed.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we don't have to go to the traditional Western medicine route. I mean, if you are, you know, but again, that's the responsibility you have to take on yourself.
True. And there are plenty of like faith healers. I mean, I saw a lady who was actually in New Zealand, and she was a faith healer, and she said that she had cured people of all sorts of conditions, and was actually shocked that the scientific community wasn't looking at this and going, okay, this is what you claim, let's really look at it. She was quite open to being looked at in that way, but nobody was taking her up on it.
Well, no, because it's...
On that bombshell, we've actually come to the end of the first half.
Okay.
Believe it or not. We're going to
Wow.
come back after the break, and we're going to go down the more spiritual perspective, the more the one-on-one, more gentler, shall I say? Or is it? We'll find out right after this.
Hello, Harry Price here. If there's nothing me and my friends enjoy more here on the other side, it is to sit back and relax and listen to the Paranormal Concept Show, right here on the PAUK Radio Network. Broadcasting a plethora of interesting and informative content for all your paranormal needs. Find them across social media to keep up to date with forthcoming shows and all their other adventures. Hello, is there anybody there?
And welcome back to the Paranormal Concept Show, exclusive to the Paranormal UK Radio Network. And this week we are looking at faith healing. Now, before the break, we went down the religious, the mass rally healing sessions that we see, and had a look at those and discussed those. Now, in the second half of the show, we're going to look at more the spiritual side. We're going to get all very zen, very like, ooh.
I'll get my drum out and start beating it in the background softly.
Yeah. Now, I will say this. I've said it's the more gentle way of healing, but I did see some shamanic kind of healings that people were being beaten with like leaves and spat on with oils and, stuff like that. I did see that kind of healing as well. So it can be, in its own way, very one-on-one, but still quite dramatic.
Yeah, so you're talking about the YouTube video you shared the other day.
Yeah, that was fantastic. But that was abroad. That was not local to me. That was I can't remember.
I think spitting over people is not, it's not the wise thing to do at the moment.
Well, no, not at the moment. I wouldn't recommend it to anybody at the moment, particularly in this day and age. But it is a thing. I've had shamanic healing done. Very powerful in its own right. But it's based more, I would say, on... Now, I was thinking about this. When we do that kind of healing, I say I class myself as this, but I'm not a healer. They are looking at complementing those other three areas, the spirituality, the mental, and the emotional, to promote physical healing.
So you're looking at sort of if you can, so you tackle your illness by sort of adjusting those other three sort of areas to cope with it.
Looking at your energy centers, how energy is flowing through your body, getting those blockages moved so energy flows better, which will complement healing in the areas needed, because generally there's a blockage in the area that's being, physically illed, as it were. Mm-hmm. So you're looking at releasing energy centers. You're looking at past life issues that might be causing blockages that you're removing. So it's the focus on removing blockages to get the energy flowing to the areas it needs to promote healing.
Right.
Reiki works in that way. Shamanic healing works in that way. And it looks deeper than just looking at it as a physical body.
Yeah.
And seeing if there's a manifestation in the physical that's coming from one of those other areas.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, for example, if I went to, I don't know, if a healer and I had a flare-up of my skin, they'd be going, right, okay, so you've got this condition, you've got this skin condition. Let's have a look at your energy centers. They'd do an energy scan on you, talk you through. There's always like a little talk first, where you're talking about what it is and why you feel like this and, what could have the triggers been, and then going, okay, and then that's where they'll focus the healing on. Or if you have a condition like arthritis or something, it's allowing, again, the energy to flow through that to promote the healing. So it's not saying they're going to heal the condition, but it's about allowing the energy to start flowing again so it heals itself.
Yeah.
Even with crystal healing, we're using the energy from the crystals to promote healing, not as a cure. There's a very distinct difference between what the evangelicals say, or whatever they're called, and what they are saying.
Okay.
So it comes from almost a psychological perspective. So you're working with that person. Generally, there's a ritual that's involved. You lay down, you'll cover them up with a towel. It's very uninvasive. Very rarely do you actually put your hands on a person. You might lay crystals on, or cups, or hit them with leaves, and the oils and stuff like that. But it's an experience that is about raising your energetic level and working in that way. Now, I have had various healings throughout my time of working in the spiritual field, and each time I've had one, and I've had the shamanic healings, I've had the more intensive oil spitting, leaf smacking kind of healing, and
really,
right. And I've
whatever
also
floats
had,
your boat, eh?
yeah, I've had crystal healing, obviously being crystal baby. I've also had Reiki. I've had that kind of healing. So I've had several different healings, gong bath healing. I've had all sorts of things that I've partaked in to experience it.
Yeah.
Okay, but I find getting into a meditative state very easy. I practice that myself on a daily basis. So for me, it's sort of like, it's just a lovely experience.
Mm-hmm.
When I had the shamanic healing, it was very powerful. It was about cutting cords to a past trauma I'd had that I didn't feel I could let go of at the time, but I came out of there and felt like I'd done it, that I'd let that situation go. There was still work to do. It was an ongoing healing process, but I felt the healing process had started from that situation rather than being immersed in it. That was an emotional situation, a mental and emotional trauma, rather than a physical. That's where I feel the spirituality sits. It sits in promoting those three areas to promote physical healing. Have you guys had any of that kind of thing?
Well, as I sort of briefly mentioned in the first half of this show, I have participated in Raj Yoga, which is a meditation. It's not sort of, they call it Raj Yoga, but it's actually a meditation. And I've had acupuncture as well for detox. I had about 6 weeks course of acupuncture, but this was all sort of part of the sort of like program I was on to break an addiction cycle. But they weren't the main sort of the main use to actually break my addiction cycle. There's a lot of other sort of therapies, sort of more traditional sort of. I had like a counsellor as well, but that was sort of part of the whole package. And yeah, I actually got a lot out of particularly the meditation side. I used to look forward to my meditation appointment once a week, and the acupuncture, I wasn't too sure about that. She just stuck loads of pins in my ears, and we used to sit down, listen again to relaxing music. I used to tend to fall asleep during the acupuncture sessions, but the meditation was good, and we also done a bit around staying in the here and now, the power of now, which was quite popular back then.
Mm-hmm. Paul?
Yeah, see, I'm still not going to buy it. No, it's just I've been trained too much in the Western medicine to even grasp all this. I just don't go for it.
So what do we think then? I mean, what do we make of this? Because as I say, there are lots of different types, lots of different types. A lot of them have got an ancient history as well. We're not talking like they've been born 5 minutes ago. A lot of them go back to a lot of Indian, Tibetan teachings.
Yeah, and I do believe there's something in it. I mean, you do sort of. I think if you get a good route, well balanced sort of person that is quite into it and does sort of use it. I mean, there certainly seems to be something about them. I find their sort of claims of healing through these sort of processes are sort of more convincing than the form of healing we were talking about before. I mean, I do generally bend towards a sort of spiritual side. I can see some merit in that, because that involves, as you were saying, not just the actual practice itself, but there's a lot of stuff there's a lot of work need to be done around the edges as well. So you don't go there with a false sense saying, well, I'm going to have this one, I don't know, sound bath or gong bath, and I'm going to be cured. You'll go and have that, but you will have to come away from it and sort of work on other areas of your life as well.
Mm-hmm. So they're good for highlighting areas that you need.
Yeah, and there's sort of it seems to be a bit of a I mean, even during medieval times in sort of like the Western sort of world, we look at those as barbaric, but you can see where it comes from, because they were sort of like split the body into sort of 4 erasmas, didn't they, or humours and stuff like that. So you can actually see a bit of that in that. But
the old style healers would look at plants and the local area and put them down to the elements. So you would have fire, air, water, and earth. Mm-hmm. And your illness is looked at. So like if you had a fever, for example, they would say that your fire humour was too much, so they would treat it with water element plants to bring the fever down. So it'd be like watercress, for example. Yeah. They would use those. That's how they sort of would view it. It's quite ancient. So like if you was lacking in iron, they would get an apple, put iron nails in to infuse the apple with the element of the iron that you're lacking for anemia, for example, and then you'd eat the apple, not with the nails in, you take the nails out, obviously, and then you'd eat the apple to increase your iron levels, things like that, which is earth. Iron is earth, right?
Yeah.
So that's sort of how they would work. That ancient medicines nowadays, we have a pill for iron, don't we? But back then, that's how they would do things like that. And it was very rudimentary, and they used to look at urine a lot. They used to look at your water a lot, a bit of a fascination with urine.
Yeah, and urine and stools, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, they said you could do a lot of healing by looking at that. But that's more like the early stages of scientific healing, isn't it? That's the early, sort of very early origins of where science would step in. And then as we learnt more, urine is very telling, isn't it? There's a lot of things they can tell through your urine.
Absolutely.
Even now, how many times you go with an ailment, it says, I need a urine sample.
Yeah.
So there is a lot of things that's the early stages of like medical healing. Whereas like regards to the other kinds of healing, that's an energetic healing. It's about, again, the energy flow going through and, working on those blockages that occur in the body through those other 3 areas to release, because you hold certain things in certain areas. So like, right, for example, going back to the IBS thing, without getting too graphic. When I get anxious, my initial anxiety sits on my chest, so I breathe differently.
Right.
Okay, so I find myself panting almost, and my breathing's a lot faster. If it gets too bad, it'll go into a panic attack.
Yeah.
if it's a longer stretch of anxiety, it sits in my solar plexus, which is just underneath my breastbone, and it will sit there. So when I work my chakras, now obviously it's after the event or before the event or daily I do this. You're working on your chakras and releasing those chakras so they're open. So if I get a situation where I feel anxious, that chakra's flowing nicely, so it doesn't get blocked there and cause the panic attack as serious as it was. And there are various things you can do, like breathing techniques and stuff like that. So when you start feeling anxious, you start breathing, you start, there are various techniques that you can use to help keep those energy points flowing. So it doesn't go into full-blown anxiety attack, full-blown IBS thing. It doesn't go into full-blown breathing problem. It doesn't go to that level, because you've learned to keep your energy centers open and flowing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And that's part of what that process is through the healing, is opening those energy centers and getting that energy flowing back through the body. So grounding is rooting out all the negative energy and accepting the positive ions from the earth. So it's that flow. And when we talk flow, it's not a one-way flow. It's not just coming from above and flowing down through. It's coming from below and flowing back up. So it's a conduit. It's a two-way thing. It's a flow, a circular flow of energy. So when you look at it from a scientific perspective, everything has a circuit. Even if you look at electrics, it has a circuit, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you have to have a earth as well. So any
Yeah, it's
excess
got to be earthed.
then gets earthed out, right? Otherwise, that could blow your electrics. It's the same kind of principle, but on a physical sort of centre. And we have lots of them. Everyone talks about the main 7, but we have lots of different meridian points throughout, which is when I was talking to Mark Manley once, he said, why do I still feel my hand? Mark's got, he had polio when he was younger, got a disability in his hand, and he feels his missing appendage.
Yeah, well, yeah, sort of. Yeah, I've heard about that with like phantom limb syndrome.
Yeah, phantom limb syndrome, exactly. And I says because the energy centre is still there, the energy flow is still there, even though it's not physically there. Your body is still recognising that.
Yeah.
So that's why you kind of feel it still. So it's not physically there, but the energy flow would still be there. Because you're a spiritual being in a physical body. Energy is not physical. You can't see energy.
No, generally, no, you can't. You can see the effects of it, but you can't actually see it. Yeah, no, I get where you're coming from. Yeah.
Do you see what I mean? So when I'm working with crystals, I can feel their energetic signature. We talk about unique energy signatures. Everybody, every physical person, every single person you meet has a unique energy signature. That's what makes us all unique. We'll all have certain traits, human traits, the fight or flight response. We have those, we all have certain baseline signatures, but our personalities are all so very different. That's what makes us unique. And crystals are very much the same. So when I'm feeling with crystals, they've got a baseline signature, like all lapis will have it, all amethyst will have it, but they've also got their own energy signature overlaid on top of that as well, their own little personality. Now, when I work with crystals, you're tuning into those unique energy signatures that work with your energy signature to affect a change. Now, does this work? No scientific proof of this, right? This is woo-woo, complete woo-woo we're talking now. Right, there's no proof of any of this. None of what we've talked about today has any real proof.
No.
There's been many studies done on this, but it does seem to have an effect.
It certainly sort of seems to make sort of sense. I mean, you think about it, a flow is sort of a natural thing. I mean, rivers flow, don't they, and stuff like that. And you notice that if there's too much rain, the river will overflow, or if something blocks the river upstream, and anything and any sort of thing that can affect that flow isn't good.
Yeah.
And I'm using the river as an analogy, and a river that sort of floods isn't really much use to anyone, or not much use to the river, or a river that is dammed up.
Sorry for ducks.
Well, yeah, true.
And beavers.
But a river that has a blockage and further upstream, it will affect what's going on downstream from that blockage, that dam or whatever. Yeah, I can see it.
So that's really sort of like the theory it works on, but you're calling in universal energy, which is around us, the cosmic energy, the Gaia energy, the earth energy, all of that. You're calling in, you're channeling it through you as a healer, and you, through your hands, are allowing that healing energy to come out and affect. So you're using that to activate the crystals. Say, crystals, we want you to do this. This is the energy. I'm giving you that energy to work on this person. Or you use vibration. We use vibration for that. Singing bowls. We use tin bells. We use tuning forks, rattles, drums, all of those things. Now, the call of the drum, we know has an effect, and a mental, emotional effect on people. You've only got to look at that when you go into a battle, or how a cannon makes you feel when a cannon goes off.
Yeah.
That you feel that vibrational energy in you. It's set to a specific intention. Like recently, we've had I don't know if you guys watched it, but bless Prince Philip, he's passed recently, and they did a lot of cannon salutes.
Yeah.
Now, the cannon salutes were done as a mark of respect and to mark the passing of Prince Philip. Very sombre.
Yeah.
Right? That's the intention. The intention to do that was to mark the respect for this man that's passed. Nobody who listened to those felt that intention. You knew the intention. You're focused on that, the intention of that. That is the focus of it. So your will, your intention, is what you are directing that energy toward. Purely magical thinking, right?
Yeah.
So if you go into a spiritual healing, your intention is to have a shamanic healing, or have a Reiki healing, or have a crystal healing, or that's your as a customer, that's your intention, that I'm going to have this healing. And then the person is using the energy. Oh God, there's hundreds of different sorts out there, people. There's like I've seen dragon healing. I've seen Ayurveda healing, pranic healing. There's so many different ones out there now. But they're all the basis of it is using energy in a specific intention to work on the energy centers within a person's body. That's the basis of all of them, no matter what name you want to give it. But they also have very individual energy signatures. So if you went to a mind, body and soul experience day, there'll be several different types of healers in that hall that you could pick from. You could have several, but you would feel differently because the intention of the energy that they've put towards you is different. And the person who's worked that energy has its own unique energy signature. So what resonates with one healer, you could go and maybe have a Reiki healing with one healer, doesn't feel right, didn't seem to have much effect. Go to a different one, but their energy focuses better on your energy. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
So it all depends on who's focusing their energy, the way it's focused, all different things. But say you could go to a hall and have healing from every single person, and you'll feel differently after everything. You'll feel totally zen by the end of it. You'd feel away with the fairies, totally. But it's about raising your vibration and getting your energy flowing again, which is why when you see people come out of healing sessions and the testimony will be, I feel lighter, I feel enlightened, I feel joyous. I feel calm. I feel happy. I feel different.
So you never can actually tell whether or not a healer is any good or not.
You have to try them.
From a skeptical point of view, you can't say whether or not one healer is better than another because they've got a big cop out as, oh, well, he don't vibrate on your frequency. He don't work with you, so you could go see another one.
Right, so go to Western medicine. I could go and see a doctor and say, doctor, I'm having these problems. And the doctor says, okay, we'll send you for this test, this test, this test, and this test. Yeah? And you'll see the specialist and he'll come up with one explanation and treat you for that. And it don't feel right. So you get a second opinion. And the second opinion changes things because his experience is different. His
but isn't that just based on experience and training? Because at the end of the day, a doctor that works for the NHS in the UK has a specific standard of training.
But you can't deny that certain Western medicine, we're talking about, Western medicine, some of them have a sixth sense.
Yeah, but then you could still turn around and say, well, that doctor's rubbish because he don't know his stuff.
No, it's not. I wouldn't say that. No more than you go, well, that Reiki healer was rubbish, whereas that Reiki healer was great. So there is a certain amount of intuition that is employed even in Western medicine.
Yeah, you need a sort of patient, doctor sort of confidentiality. Well, not confidence, nothing to
connection.
do with
I'd say it's a connection.
Yeah. And you hear of doctors having, some doctors having a better bedside manner than other doctors.
Yeah, but then that's you could still quite easily turn around and say, well, that doctor's got a bad bedside manner, but that doctor, he's lovely. He talks to you till the cows come home.
Okay,
yeah,
so
but that could
that is down to your personal choice, and you can still see the level of skill that man's got, but you can't do that with a healer.
But you can't do that with a doctor either until you've gone through the experience.
Yeah.
Can you?
But the level of standards are still there.
There is a level of standard. Yeah, but there's still a level of standard. I always say you can teach people the tools and what they are, but you've got to then use them to gain the experience to get the best from those tools. And some tools you'll work better with. Like, for example, you could walk into a room full of amethyst. They'll all have a unique energy. They'll all have a baseline energy signature. One will call to you, and that's the one you'll work best with. I've had rattles. I can't work with rattle energy. That doesn't resonate with me at all. So I don't work with that. I've worked best with crystals, which is why I work with crystals in the same way as tarot decks. You'll work better with one deck than you would another deck. So it's exactly the same principle. So doctors have a level of intuition when they're working with a patient. Yes, they've got their baseline, medical, learning in the same way as you all go through the same Reiki attunement. But the end result is you take those as a tool, whatever way it is, and move forward into that realm. Yeah, so one doctor might literally be great at remembering everything that was in a textbook and go by the book of what he learned in medical school, but then another doctor will have learned exactly the same thing, but his intuition will lead him in a different way.
I can certainly see that, yeah. I mean, you get experienced doctors, it's not all... Well, a fair bit of it is knowledge, but they had to have an intuition as well. Otherwise, surely it wouldn't work properly.
Exactly the same way as you wouldn't go into a healing with somebody without any form of training whatsoever. It gets passed on. So like I say, if you go through, example, Reiki or shamanism, there's a process before you set up and start healing people. You don't just say, right, oh well, I can't sit there and go, right, well, I've had a shamanic healing, so now I can do that. There's no way I would do that, because you are messing with energy. You've got to know what you're doing with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So healers don't just pop up and go, I think I'll do that today. You know what I mean? I know the theory of a lot of them, but I've not gone through that process myself.
Oh, I bet there are some that have just popped up and gone, oh, I've done that. I can do that now.
Oh, possibly. I'm not going to say there isn't, but generally they would have gone through that process.
So
of
how can you then spot the ones that haven't?
Did you feel anything when you had them? Same as the medium.
No, the medium was rubbish. I know that. But no, it's just not. No,
there is a board in regards to, I can't remember what it's called now, but there is an association to you have to prove yourself before you can be on the board. Like, you can be approved, and then you get a certificate saying that you're part of this association. But as say, you go through a process to be accepted. They don't just accept anybody. It's like a club type scenario.
Yeah, but if they turned around and said, no, you're not good enough to be in our club, then what's to stop them going away and setting up themselves anyway?
There isn't, but not being funny, a spiritual healer in the realm that we're talking about is not going to kill anybody.
But they've got they've got the possibility of doing that, surely.
No.
If someone goes to them thinking that they can cure them and then they just end up dead.
But like I say, they would never say that they're there to cure. They would never, ever say that.
With a doctor can only practice in the UK as under the GMC.
Because they're administering medicine.
Yeah. Well,
but you're not administering medicine.
Maybe not the spiritual healers, no. But when you're talking about Eastern medicines and stuff like that, they are.
What, like the Chinese doctor and stuff like that?
Yeah.
But they have to go through a learning process. It's not just you can't just buy a load of herbs and then having said that, I've actually done a herbology course, and it did say you can now administer, and I was like, no way would I even think about it. It's just like an online learning course. Do you know what I mean? No way.
At least with a doctor, you've got the GMC to fall back on. With a healer, you haven't got that.
No, but as I say, it depends on what type of healing you're looking at. If you was looking at going to, like the Chinese doctor I went to, did have a lot of qualifications, should I say. Now, I could have bought them off the internet for all I know, but it was a chain type one that was set up in the precinct that I went to. I wouldn't just go to sort of like a backstreet doctor, no more than I would go to a backstreet herbalist. So you use your discernment, but no spiritual healer is going to turn around and say, I can cure you
Would you say
ailment.
Spiritual healers, I mean, you know, are they sort of more attuned to actually sort of getting their patients in the right frame of mind? Sort of a lot of sort of stuff they seem to deal with is emotional as opposed to physical.
Emotional, mental, and spiritual.
Spirit, yeah.
So you're looking at psychological traumas and stuff like that, and you know, even down to past lives and you know, things like that. So yeah, in that way, they're promoting healing by focusing on the areas that need to be healed that will affect the physical body.
Yeah, I get it.
Even if you went with a physical ailment, they're just using energy. They're using energy to promote healing. Not ever would say they could cure you. Not like the religious ones where you come and be healed and be cured. I've cured people. No. You wouldn't hear them say that.
Right, okay.
They'll say we can help, but they would never say they could cure. Because they can't. They can't prove that they can. So you would not claim something you can't prove. A medium, if you go to a medium in exactly the same way, you'd go to a medium, some you resonate with and come out and go, God, she was spot on. And others you think, God, she was, no. Unfortunately, by then you've paid your money.
Mm.
Unfortunately. But, you know, it's you can't measure it. It's one of those, you can't measure it.
Mm.
You can only measure it in how it made you feel after you've had it. I know the experiences I've had with that. I've gone to people that I know that are well known, that are very good at what they do, and it has had an impact. It has affected me to the point where one time I changed my life. It literally allowed me to let go of a situation that I've been holding on to. Was very, very cathartic. Emotionally felt like I could move forward where I didn't feel I could at that time. Another one, the sound bath one I had, I didn't actually have that for any specific reason. I just wanted to experience that. And again, very powerful experience. Felt very different when I came out of it. Experienced things in that sound bath within the meditation that were very interesting. Acupuncture and the herbologist guy, that was ingesting a potion effectively. But again, very, reputable. I went to a reputable source, and I believe that did more for me than the Western medicine. I'd lost faith in Western medicine at that point when I had that. Mm-hmm. And I believe that put me on the road to recovery. I've had, healing after a medium night where they were doing healing. And I said to you before when we were talking off air, where it was just like a little 10-minute session, and she told me where the problem was, and she was right. How could she know that? I didn't show any external symptoms of that problem. That was a problem with my knee, but I wasn't limping or anything. It was just really painful, but I wasn't limping. And she sort of went, oh, you've got a problem with your knee. How did she know that?
Because she saw you come in.
But I wasn't limping or anything. So when I sat in that chair, she didn't say, oh, where's your problem? I just saw a nice gentle healing, please. She went, oh, you've got a problem with your knee. It's like, yeah, I have actually.
Yeah.
We'll focus on that. Okay.
But you said you knew this medium.
Thank you. No, this was on just a spiritual medium, a spirit church. So there's a platform medium worked, and then afterwards they were doing healing.
Did you go on your own?
No, I was with a couple of friends.
So could they have mentioned it?
I can't remember. I doubt it. It's not the sort of thing we were
talking
about.
Then, isn't it?
But yet you're so very sceptical of this, and yet you have a 3-week period where you had no pain in your back after going through some form of healing.
Yeah, but I'm not saying it was them that did it. I don't know. It could have been the painkillers.
Was you on the painkillers after the 3 weeks?
Not during that 3-week period, no.
So the 3-week period you had that healing, you weren't on painkillers?
No.
And then after the 3 weeks, you then went on painkillers?
Yeah.
So it weren't the painkillers then, was it?
Well, they helped as well.
But you said you weren't on them after the 3 weeks of that healing session.
Oh, no. No, it was just one session.
Yeah.
But
and then I said, did you have painkillers in the 3 weeks?
I was pain-free for that 3 weeks.
Yeah, and then that 3 weeks...
Yeah, but it could have just been coincidence.
Could be. But then again, it might not have been. You didn't go back to see, did you?
No. But I'm off the painkillers now anyway, so it's all right.
Yeah.
It all worked out for the work best.
It all worked out in the end. But maybe it had worked out quicker if you continued.
And maybe it couldn't.
And maybe it might not have. Don't know, because you didn't try it, love.
Yeah, very optimistic there.
It's one of those, though, isn't it? You either buy into it or you don't. Again, faith and belief. Do you believe that that's going to work for you? I've got a very spiritual perspective. So whenever I go for one of these sessions, in whatever manner that takes shape, I'm very open-minded to the experience. And I have that spiritual belief. I have a belief and I have faith in spirituality and in energy centers and in all that stuff. I have a belief in that. So okay, so look at it skeptically. Look at it psychologically. I already have a belief in it, so it's going to work, right?
Mm.
Right?
Yeah.
No different from somebody who believes in an evangelist up on the stage to heal them, and he has an effect.
Yeah, but as I said, with the experience I had, I'm not putting it down to the church.
But you can't not either.
Well, I don't. Yeah, as I said, it don't. I don't. It's not that I've got a strong belief in it. So there's no way it was the power of Christ and all that. No.
I can't argue it. I don't know, do I? I think it's a very personal thing for people. Belief and faith is very personal for each individual. You know, I truly believe that is what makes it so unique for everybody, and what works for one won't work for another. But then we do know that skepticism can be overturned. We see it in the paranormal field all the time.
Yeah.
The hard-nosed skeptic comes in, gets scared out of his wits within half hour. But a lot of that is psychological suggestion. So we go down to, right, so then let's examine that. Psychological suggestion and the placebo effect. Do you believe it works? So it does. You medically, when they do medical trials on drugs, they do test subjects, and they've got one group where they're getting the medicine that they're testing. And they have another group of people who they say that they're giving the drug, but they're not. They're just giving them
No, that's correct.
a dull drug, right?
Yeah.
So then they can judge to see the placebo effect and how many people believe it's going to work for them, so it has an effect. And then the group that's actually getting it, what effect they're getting on that. But neither group in this will know whether they're getting the real drug or not.
No, sometimes even the doctors don't know.
Yeah. So they take out even the power of suggestion, or even like telepathic interaction, you know. So it's a blind test, isn't it? Just to see the results of this drug and whether or not it has an effect. That's scientific.
Yeah.
That's how they do it. So what's the power of suggestion there then? Do they have a big placebo effect? Is there a big difference in trials? There obviously is, isn't there?
The placebo effect is, again, just the power of the mind, isn't it? Positive thinking.
But when I'm talking about scientific trials, there obviously is a difference between the placebo group and the group that's being given the drugs. That's how come they know the drugs is working.
Yeah,
so
the
a
people
certain
with
percentage of the placebo group, the effects it would have, there will be an effect to a degree, but nowhere near what they would get in the actual drug trial, right?
That's right, yeah.
Rich, you got anything to add at that point?
Not really, no. Sort of like the placebo effect. I mean, it is, you know, if anything, that is the area where science does actually come in, because they do actually use it, and you know, and you have to look at the power of the mind, because surely, you know, the good thing about the placebo effect is that modern medicine keep using it. So it must work in some way. It must be of use to them.
Well, it gives them a judge, but it also does it does give them an indication of that in effect.
Yeah.
But if both groups come up with the same level of change, it would indicate the drug isn't working, that it is only the placebo effect that's in play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, whereas if there's a dramatic difference in groups, particularly the group that's got the real drug, they can see that the placebo effect is at play in the non-tested group per se, and the tested group. So they know that this is a thing, so it's measurable.
Yeah, of course it is, yeah.
Yeah, and that would be used in any drug actually given, or
anything that they're testing.
Anything, yeah. I mean, you only have to look. I'm sure all these vaccines they're now developing for the COVID situation, they would have been part of placebo trial as well.
Yeah, they were. There was I think, wasn't it 80,000 people in the UK had this test
Yeah.
with the placebo effect. Yeah.
So just looking at that and being more skeptical, looking at it from a more skeptical perspective, if you went for spiritual healing, you're still going to get a certain amount of improvement there because you have that in play.
Yeah. It must. Yeah, it must. It must happen. Yeah. If you agree with the placebo effect, you have to agree with it within the spiritual field as well. That if you, mind over matter, isn't it? If you think you're getting it and it does work, happy days.
It should, if that's the case, it should roughly transpire that you get the same amount of results from the placebo effect to the spiritual side.
Yeah, I don't know. You probably
because
do.
you're using the power of the mind, aren't you?
Yeah, and it
that's
probably
what the
does work
placebo.
like that.
That's what the placebo effect is as well.
I'm not saying, and I'm sure Kerry wouldn't say, that there's not people that's been to spiritual healers that come away and haven't been healed, and that must happen the same as what it does within the medical sort of field. There are people with long-term health conditions which, can't be sort of healed at the moment.
Mm.
Or have been healed and they can't explain it.
Yeah, sort of, vice versa as well. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, because there are still things that happen that the scientific medical community can't explain.
No,
Certain
that's
patients will make a miraculous recovery from something that they believed they would never. Somebody has a serious accident and says, "I'm sorry, they're never going to walk again," and then within 6 months they're up and walking and going, "God, how the hell did that happen?" Power of the mind.
Power of the mind.
Is it all down to that? Or is it the body's ability to be...
I think it's
explain
the body. It. The body isn't as damaged as what the doctors thought initially. It could have been, and with the positive thinking and the sheer willpower of that person.
Yeah, but when you're talking of a spiritual
to push themselves.
Yeah, but is it? Surely that's not out of the realm to be okay that if a spiritual healer can help an individual sort of attain that sort of frame of mind, that sort of right state of mind. I mean, surely that's got to be good anyway.
Oh yeah, I'm not saying that, because again, it's just changing. It is just positive power, positive mindset.
Yeah.
So anything that changes, like makes it a positive mindset, is always going to be good.
Yeah, it's going to be good, isn't it? And perhaps this is where spiritual healing does have a place, or alternative healing, whatever you like to call it.
Yeah, I think the term healing is very misunderstood.
Yeah,
because
it's a bit like an umbrella term, though. Do you not think?
Yeah.
I think it's the wrong term.
What term would you use?
How about positive thinking awareness?
I would use myself, perhaps, if we're trying to redefine it. I would use the term assisted healing, perhaps.
Yeah.
Well, they do use the term complementary therapy.
That's better. Yeah,
compliment. Yeah, it was there all along.
Yeah,
because
Kerry just hid it from us.
Well, just checking their knowledge level, everybody out there. So there are, we're arguing. We go back to, and we've talked about this before in regards to the paranormal, terminology.
Yeah.
Don't we? What one person will interpret, another will be offended or not offended, but it could lead to a misrepresentation of what it is you're actually doing. A complementary therapy.
I don't think anyone's going to be offended by healing or healers or faith healers or anything like that. It's not them being offended. It's just the wrong terminology for what they should be or are doing.
Yeah.
Because they're not actually healing you per se. They're giving you the power of positive thinking to believe you can heal, which in turn has an effect on your body that helps you recover.
Yeah.
So they're not healing as such, are they? They're just
But you can.
assisting
You need mentally
recovery.
healing.
Well, yeah, they do that as well, but it's still assisting recovery. And that's what they're doing.
Well,
It's like
complementary therapy is probably the better
I
term.
like. Well, it's the same sort of thing, yeah. But yeah, I like that one. I prefer that one.
And a lot of healers will class themselves as that, a complementary healer, a complementary therapist, rather than you wouldn't go spiritual healer. You'd call yourself a complementary therapist, and then
Well, I
outline
like
what
them
it is
ones.
you do. You know, in all
you
honesty.
can
I've
see
been-
this at work, and it is sort of there are sort of the standard medical field does reach out occasionally and have sort of will let sort of complimentary sort of healers sort of like in and stuff. I mean, there's always something that's very good, especially with elderly and stuff like that, to keep them sort of mind active and stuff, where people will take their pets in and they can stroke and stuff like
Pet
that.
therapy, yeah.
Pet therapy.
And that's just a dog, and the cynic can just sit there and say, well, it's a dog, and what's stroking a dog going to do? I mean, it does do a lot for some people.
Think about the purr of a cat. They say the purr of the cat sets off various endorphins or whatever it's called in your body and promotes the feel-good factor.
Yeah,
Not so good when they're digging their claws into you, I would say that, but because they do the needy thing, don't they, when they're purring?
Yeah.
But but again, think of the vibration of the purr of a cat.
Yeah, I'm a cat person myself. I do like a cat. Yeah, no.
The unconditional love of a dog. When you think about those kind of terms, they're complementary therapies to your mental well-being, aren't they? I mean, I know that certain hospitals now and GPs will actually recommend going to maybe have a complementary therapy like Reiki or acupuncture. I mean, we talked to Gareth Hughes, and he was saying that they are moving more towards that than they ever have been. They can't explain it, but they acknowledge that it does make a difference.
Well, it's not that they can't explain it, because they sort of do. Because with the whole, as you said, with the dog therapy, they've taken a look at that and they've realised that when people are in close proximity to animals and they're doing the whole petting thing, it does make people happier. So it releases, as you said, endorphins in the brain to make them happier, which again is a positive, another positive for the brain to help you heal. So they thought, well, okay, well, why not try this? So they've trialled it. It made people feel a little bit better. Whether it healed them as such, I don't know, but it made them feel better, and that's a good thing. So let's do that. And there are other therapies they've added and introduced. So maybe they're just looking at sort of that sort of stuff one by one and saying, actually, yeah, okay, I can see how that works. It's a good thing. Let's introduce that as well.
I think underneath it all, faith and belief comes into it. I think there's a lot of psychological things at play within this as well. I think there's a lot of different facets to this that you look at. And as always with anything like this, be very discerning with where you part your money with. But again, it's your judgment as whether you want to part with your money to any of this that we're talking about, whether it be the religious perspective or the spiritual perspective. It's your own discernment where you want to spend your money. I don't mind spending money out on a spiritual healing session because it makes me feel good. I like it, and I feel that it has an effect on me. That's my personal perspective, and I don't care what anybody else thinks, quite frankly. Having said that, I would never dismiss the importance of always going to medical help, GP, hospitals, doctors. Don't ever dismiss those and just rely purely on those complementary medicines, because they can work in tangent.
Yeah.
But use your discernment where you're prepared to part with your money is where I would go with it.
Well, yeah. I mean, we're certainly not advocating that everyone should go to see a faith healer.
No,
if they're not feeling too good.
But I would also say don't dismiss them either. But do it in tangent.
But if you do want to consider them, you could always talk to your GP about it.
Yeah, some GPs are now more open to that than they used to be.
Yeah.
Some.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, if it's a case of like with the old wacky backy, if a doctors wouldn't never say have that.
No. No, but they might say CBD oil now. The trials are being done on that, and it's having very positive effects. I take the bit that gets you stoned out, and that's become massive, hasn't it?
It has.
Yeah.
I mean, for years, people were using it in ways of like ME and stuff like that to help control pain. Yeah. Before the medical industry got involved in that, because they saw it just as a...
Yeah, still not condoned.
No, still not condoned, but it's becoming more acceptable. More states in America are making it legal.
Yeah.
Yeah, but not in the UK. In the UK, it's CBD oil or CB, whatever it is, I don't know.
Yeah, obviously, depending on where you live, as the legal side of that. But that shows you
that's another argument anyway.
That's true. But I think what that does show is it does show a progression of our understanding of certain things, and the progression of the medical industry. They're always making massive steps forward in the scientific realms. We've seen that most recently in regard to the COVID vaccine being developed and how quickly that's come through. That's still gone through extensive trials to be then administered. And I think that's a kudos to the... I won't take anything away from the scientific community. I think it's fantastic. But I do think that you shouldn't necessarily dismiss the spiritual side either. But then that's my belief system, and everybody. On that note...
Always see your GP first.
Yeah, always see your GP first. And use it as a complementary therapy alongside... Indeed. The medical. Anyway, on that note, we're actually come to the end of the show. And he said shop then. End of the show.
Well, that was a quick one.
Yeah. Well, it did go quite quick. Interesting topic though when you look at it, isn't it?
It is, definitely.
Certainly multi-layered and a good discussion had by all.
Definitely. Any news to report, lads?
No, the book is still for sale. Paranormal Concept Extra, available from Amazon.
Yeah, and
so you go and buy that.
Or they can go onto our website, paranormalconcept.com, and we've got a whole back catalogue of all our shows are on there, plus our blogs. Isn't that right, Paul?
Yeah, they are. They're all on there. There will be a new one very shortly as well.
There will be. Don't forget, check us out on the socials. We are on Paranormal Concept on Facebook, Twitter, and I believe Instagram as well. On that note, we've come to the end of the show, so say goodbye, guys.
Goodbye, guys.
Goodbye, guys.